Okay, sir. This is Greg Pass with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is February 24th, 2022. And I have the pleasure today to interview Dr. John Hamre. Thanks for joining us today, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sir, can you give me your full name and where you were born?
My full name is John, middle initial J, Hamre, Hamre. Was born in actually Watertown, South Dakota, but that was the nearest hospital. I grew up in a little town of about 400 people called Willow Lake, South Dakota.
Okay. And do you have any public servants or military veterans in your family?
Oh yeah, my dad was, well, all of my uncles served in World War II.
And what was your motivation or inspiration to join and serve in public service?
Well, to be honest, when I came here to Washington to to finish my doctorate, or to get my doctorate, and I thought I was going to teach at the university level. But in 1978, it was a time when there was a real recession on and very few jobs. And I learned of a job at the Congressional Budget Office in the National Security Division. And I hadn't really thought of myself following a career in defense and national security, but I found all of the issues interesting and applied, and I was brought in. And then that led me to to work for the Senate Armed Services Committee for 10 years. And after that, I was first the comptroller, the chief financial officer for the Defense Department, and then became the deputy secretary in my last time in public life.
And what years of service were you the deputy secretary?
I was the deputy secretary from, let's see, it was 1997 until 2000.
And can you tell us about your connection with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers?
Yeah, I mean, it's always had a very special place in my heart. One of my aunts, I still remember one of my aunts when she came out to visit. She was actually with a school group, and she was the traveling nurse. And she only wanted to see one thing, which was the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. She had been a nurse in World War II. And it's always been a place in my mind. But when I became the deputy secretary, the day that I was sworn in, I went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and laid a wreath as the deputy secretary. And the last thing I did when I left office was I went to the tomb and laid a wreath.
And what is your experience, and what are your thoughts about the men and women who serve at the tomb?
Well, first of all, I should explain why did I go to the tomb on my first day of office and my last day of office, and the reason is that the tomb is one of the few national monuments that it has just transcended its original meaning. You know, the original purpose of the tomb was to bury the remains of an unknown soldier or sailor from World War I, and to create this permanent testimony to all of the people who died unknown and unreturned, so that there's one place where every family could go. But the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier really has transcended all of that. It's now the only place, we've got places like Independence Hall, we've got the Capitol, the Supreme Court, all of these places, the Washington Monument, all these places commemorate very concrete, specific things in our national history. And that's how the tomb started. But the tomb now has transcended that. And the tomb now is the one place you can go where you can render your personal thanks and honor to everyone that's ever served at any time, in any place, and any person that ever will serve. This is the one place you can go where you can embrace everyone who sacrificed. So I felt it was important as the deputy secretary. I wanted it to be my personal statement that this is how I want to embrace the people for whom I have to serve. Okay. So that's why I did it.
And what is your involvement today with the various organizations that support the soldiers at the tomb?
Well, I was honored when the Sentinels brought me on as an honorary member of the Sentinels. But then about 5 years ago, two of the two tomb guards, who are old guys like me, called and said, we need to start thinking now about the 100th anniversary of the tomb. And that the 100th anniversary isn't just an anniversary of the creation of the tomb, but it should be an opportunity that a nation pauses to think and reflect and give thanks to everyone who served and died. So we started that about 5 years ago. We were able to get legislation to set the day aside for a special ceremony, a special commemoration. One of the two gents that was instrumental in this didn't live long enough to see it. But Richard did, and Richard then carried the banner for us all of those of us that were working on this, carried the banner for us on the anniversary date, at the ceremony, and led the way to create the flower ceremony that became, a way for individuals to render their personal thanks. So it was in that capacity that I worked, and we created something called the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier Foundation that was used to raise a little bit of money and to become the kind of the agent, for our shared sentiments that we needed to do something as a nation.
How was that ceremony received by the public?
I think it was received very well. Not nearly enough Americans knew about it. It passed. It was one of those things that, like a lot of things in modern life, was subsumed by COVID, and everything was kind of, it was like there was a muffler on everything during that period. But it was a very moving ceremony, and I think the people may not appreciate what the significance of the flower ceremony was, because when you lay a wreath at the tomb, and I was privileged to do that, and my parents joined me the one time, but they quickly remove that wreath after you leave, so the tomb is pristine. And there's no way for average individuals. I was able to do it because I was the deputy secretary, but there's no way for average individuals to render their personal physical gratitude by laying a flower at the tomb, because it's been the policy to keep the tomb pristine. And I understand that. But on this day, on the day of the 100th anniversary, we felt it was important for individuals to be able to do something. Normally, citizens come and they watch the change of the Sentinels, but it's very much a spectator thing. It isn't a participatory thing. This was meant to be a participatory event, and that's why we sponsored it.
Sir, do you believe that the relevance of the tomb is as important today as it was 100 years ago?
Oh, I think it's more important. It's more important today. 100 years ago, it reflected, the sincere gratitude of people about those who died in World War I. But it was limited in time. It was limited in scope. It only meant something to their minds. It only meant something about the war that they had just lived. And it was called the Great War, the war to end all wars. It was horrific, but it was meant to be very limited to that one thing. But the tomb has in its history now transcended all of that. And so it's much more important. How do we remember those who are missing in action from the Vietnam War? Well, it has to be more than just having a flag, an MIA flag, that you put up in the air someplace. You've got to have, a tomb is a place of spiritual significance. And that's why we need the tomb now. And it needs to be there forever.
You once described the tomb, used the term unique. You talked a little bit at the beginning of the interview. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you think the tomb is unique when it comes to all the special places we have in the United States?
Well, we have many, many special places, and I'm so grateful that we do as a nation. And of course, the Veterans Administration manages our national cemeteries, which is a real treasure. You'll remember that how we got the national cemetery system. It was when we learned of hastily buried bodies in the Civil War that subsequent rains had uncovered. And when they went back, to the burial grounds, bones were in the open. I mean, we committed ourselves then to create permanent resting homes of dignity. So it's in the context of our national emotional sentiments about people that have died in service, our commitment to them. It's in the context of that the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier sits, but it transcends it because we don't know who all these people are. I can't know who all the people are. And the one promise we have to make to everyone who serves is, we will never forget you. We will never forget you. Well, where do you do that? That just can't be an emotional pledge we make to ourselves and then forget about. That has to be grounded in something tangible. And that's what the tomb is. It's unlike any other really iconic national symbol, because everything else, you look at the White House and it's the presidency. You look at the Capitol building, it's the Congress. You look at Independence Hall in Pennsylvania, and that's about our founding fathers. You look at the Washington Monument or the Jefferson Monument. Those are about individuals, but what is the symbol of personal sacrifice? It's the tomb.
Final thought. What advice or what request, I should say, would you give to the American people on how to support the tomb and just in general, how to respect those who have fallen in defense of our country?
Well, one of our original goals when we created the Tomb Foundation was to try to create an annual salute, which we defined to be a 2-minute period of silence, or with bells ringing, but a 2-minute period in every city, in every town, every little hamlet in America, that for 2 minutes once a year, we all pause and think about those who served and died, and those who are willing to serve and die. We didn't get that done. It's my one regret. We were not able to get that accomplished, but it still is a goal that, we keep the foundation going, and it's still the goal that we have, that there be, nowadays, I hate to say it, when we get to Memorial Day or we get to, Veterans Day, they're now shopping days. It's about recreation. It's not about reflection and remembrance. And so our goal was to try to return a sense of this should be a time of reflection and remembrance, and recommitment to the foundations of our national values for which these men and women died. That was our goal. We didn't get that done yet, but we're going to continue to try.
Yes, sir. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just to say thank you for what you're doing. Far too many Americans now do not know their military. And because they don't know their military, they don't have a personal sense of commitment, both to those who serve and their own obligation to serve. So I think these national symbols of service are more important than ever, because we have to keep alive in the imagination of these rising generation that service is noble, service is honorable, service makes you a bigger person. So I think it's important what you're doing, and it's important for all of us in our respective ways to do this. We're just lucky to be born in this country. So what we should be every day in this country, instead of thinking, how do we criticize this country? How do we be worthy of living in this country? So thank you what you're doing.
I could not agree with everything you said more, sir. I appreciate that. And thank you for, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Museum and Wartime Experience, I thank you for spending time with us today. And more importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Well, you're very kind to have me. Is your museum open now?
We're still doing site work right now, but we anticipate being open probably in about 2 years from now.
Okay. Well, so I look forward to getting there.
It's a long road.
Well, it is a long road. These are hard things to do, and I really do admire what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.